والله يدعو إلى دار السلام ويهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم
مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت 7 سنابل
وكل في فلك يسبحون
ويخلق ما لا تعلمون.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to a new episode of our program, The Universal Quran. We are still getting more lessons and more examples and more instructions of the great surah we have here, which is Surah Al-Insan, or chapter of Al-Insan. Last time we talked about verse number 7, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he described about the Abrar, and he said إِنَّا نَخَافُ مِنْ رَبِّنَا يَوْمًا عَبُوسًا قَمْطَرِيرًا. So they are scared by this day, and they are afraid of this day. They are not quite sure whether they are going to pass the test or not. This is always the behavior, or this is the custom of the people who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as he should be feared. We said before the example of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, and he said that if one of my legs in paradise, and I am afraid that the other one might not be in paradise as well. And Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, about whom the Prophet ﷺ, he said, if there was a prophet to come after me, it should be Umar. Sayyidina Umar, he said that if the angel called that all people will enter paradise except one person, I would be afraid that it might be me. So this is the custom or the way by which the companions of the Prophet ﷺ used to follow. So some people, unfortunately, they have more confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they didn't prepare for that day. They are not at all prepared to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, وَإِنَّ قَوْمًا غَرَّتْهُمُ الْأَمَانِي وَقَالُوا نَحْنُ نُحْسِنُ الظَّنِّ كَذَبُوا فَلَوْ أَحْسَنُوا الظَّنَّ لَأَحْسَنُوا الْعَمَلِ. Or the meaning of the hadith, he said that some people, they said, we think good of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they are not telling the truth, because if they are thinking good of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they should have prepared themselves very well for that day. So if you want to be safe against all difficulties of that day, against all misfortune that might inflict you or that might inflict the bad people, you need to prepare yourself very well. As we mentioned the verse before in Surah At-Tawbah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَتَزَوَّدُوا فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ الزَّادِ التَّقْوَى. Get provision, but the best provision that you can take with you is fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as he said in Surah Al-A'raf, وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. The garment of taqwa, or the garment of righteousness, is the best garment, is the best dress you can wear all the times. So إِنَّا نَخَافُ مِنْ رَبِّنَا, because they said we are scared. And the hadith, the meaning of the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot gather two kinds of fear and for a person. For example, the person who feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him safety in the hereafter. And the one who didn't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cause him to be fearful and to be scared in the hereafter. Because as the Quran stated in chapter of Ar-Rahman, وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ جَنَّةً. And the one who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala position, and who knows the position of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant him not only one paradise, but two different types of paradise, as the verse in chapter Ar-Rahman states. So إِنَّا نَخَافُ مِنْ رَبِّنَا يَوْمًا عَبُوسًا قَمْطَرِيرًا, in order, or their reward by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they used to, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in Surah Al-Dhariyat, كَانُوا قَلِيلًا مِنَ اللَّيْلِ مَا يَهْجَعُونَ. They used to pray over the night. They used to, for example, offer additional prayers, offer additional worships, and so on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the reward by saying, فَوَقَاهُمُ اللَّهُ شَرَّ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ وَلَقَّاهُمْ نَضْرَةً وَسُرُورًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them protection against the fears, against the hardships, the difficulties of that day. And then he says, he shed over them light with joy and magnificent light. Maybe this is it, in supportance or in compliance with another hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ, he said, there are 7 categories of people who will be protected under the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And first of all, Imam Adil is a just ruler, and then a young man who feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and one who remembered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his eyes were filled with tears, and a man who was invited to commit, for example, adultery by a woman, and then he said, I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another one is the person who gave for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or for a charity to the extent that his left hand doesn't know what his right hand gave, and somebody who mentioned Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he cried because of that. And there are anyway 7 categories. So because those people feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then on the day of judgment there is no other shelter, there is no place. You can't go for another place and you say, for example, no, I'll go to the mountain, as the story of the son of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, when he says, قال سآوي إلى جبل يعصمني من الماء قال لا عاصم اليوم من أمر الله إلا من رحم. He said that I'll go or I'll seek resort to a high mountain. Then Sayyidina Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, no, nobody will be protected against the floods, for example, during the time of Nuh alayhi salam. And on the day of judgment, there is no place. You can't, for example, say, oh, I'll go to the president, to the minister. I'll go, for example, to one of the very strong buildings in which I can be protected. No. All buildings, everything there will be reduced to ashes, and people will be gathered in public before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will be waiting for getting their account settled by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The good ones will go to paradise, the bad ones will go to hellfire. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you against such fears, against such hardships, against such difficulties, because you feared Him one day. Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu is reported one day he was leading people in Fajr prayer, and he was scared of that day. And when he started reading Sayyidina Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he said that I was unable to distinguish the verses that Umar, for example, was reading because of his crying, because he was fearful, he was afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishment. And Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, one day while he was praying and he was unable to say Allahu Akbar, he stood for a long time, and people asked him, oh Imam, you stayed for a long time but you were unable to say Allahu Akbar, what happened? He said, I remembered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala position, and I remembered the day of judgment, and I was scared of that day, so I was unable to say Allahu Akbar. Because Allahu Akbar means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater all people, is greater all universe, is greater all, for example, those rulers, or greater than positions, everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater than it. So remember, when you pray, for example, the first word you say Allahu Akbar, when you raise your hands like that, you means that you throw the world behind your backs. You remember nothing, but just you remember that now you are, for example, standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are worshipping Him. You are going to bow down before Him. You are going to prostrate yourself before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You remember none. You forget about your children, your, for example, position, your job, your work, your PhD, your MA, anything, your studies. Leave all these things for the time being and remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because prayer is only few minutes. If you pray, for example, and make wudu and all these things, this will not take more than 20 minutes. So within these 20 minutes, leave everything, leave life, and remember that now you are doing something for your next life.
يهدي به الله من اتبع رضوانه سبل السلام.
Welcome to this new episode of Focus Point.
The new generation has the habit of reading more than before.
Your question was basically the problem of Jews who lost their function in society.
يهدي به الله من اتبع رضوانه سبل السلام.
فوقاهم الله شر ذلك اليوم ولقاهم نضرة وسرورا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them against all hardship that they might face in this day, and then He will shed light over them. And after that, this is not only one thing, and there are more and more things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them. He said also, وَجَزَاهُمْ بِمَا صَبَرُوا جَنَّةً وَحَرِيرًا. Because of their patience, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide them, or will grant them a complete admittance to paradise. But as Mufassirun said, they sabaru, they were patient for what? Some of them said that they were patient because they deprived themselves of the pleasures of this life. They didn't enjoy themselves with everything they want to get, for example. And a very short example, one day Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he found Sayyidina Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, may Allah be pleased with them. Sayyidina Jabir was holding a piece of meat, and Sayyidina Umar asked him, "Oh Jabir, what you have?" And he said to him, "O Commander of the Faithful, it's only a piece of meat that I liked." And Sayyidina Umar told him, "Everything you like, you eat it. Aren't you scared that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would say to you on the Day of Judgment that you have enjoyed yourself and you have taken all your pleasures in the dunya and you have nothing with us today?" So it's not a matter, for example, because some people say, it seems that you are a little bit rigid, Shaykh. You want all people, for example, to lead an ascetic life, to deprive themselves. No, you shouldn't do that, of course. But always try to get something rational. Try to make a kind of balance between the pleasures and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what makes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala happy and what makes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala displeased. Don't involve in loads of pleasures and always, for example, you do that and you do that. You just please yourself without taking your precaution that one day you are going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Without asking yourself one question. For example, you would say, okay, I am enjoying everything now. So how about other people? How about my brothers in different parts of the world? How about my brothers, for example, in Palestine or in other part of the world who are suffering, who are unable to find food, who are unable to find shelter? Whether in any part of the world there are loads of Muslims, millions of Muslims who are in need for your help and in need for your support. And when you have such pleasures, remember them. Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, one day, always, although he was, you could say, in our language today, he was the minister of supply, the minister of provision, but he used to stop eating and he used to deprive himself of many pleasures. And when he was asked, "O minister," or "O Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we notice that you deprive yourself of such things," he said, "In order to share my poor brothers, in order to have the feelings of those who are unable to find food." So whenever you have something like that, okay, have it, but in a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes. You shouldn't, for example, gather loads of different kinds of foods, more than, for example, some people, subhanallah, I had an email from one of the brothers, and I saw a few things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can never be pleased with. I saw some people, some amirs or something like that, and they have, you could say, tons of vegetables and fruits in front of them. And at the end of the email, we find the hardships and the tragedy of some people in some parts of Africa, for example. On the top, people are enjoying different kinds of foods, meat, and so on. That's fine, but this is against. This is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تُبَذِّرْ تَبْذِيرًا. Don't go into extremism in food and such things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. Eat and drink, but don't be extravagant. Don't do that in a way which is unlimited, for example, in a way which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like. Many people spend thousands and always they say, okay, just let us have pleasure, just let us please enjoy ourselves. Yes, enjoy yourself, but in a limited way, in a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes, in a way that is proved or approved by the Prophet by the Prophet ﷺ. This is the behavior of the Muslim, because the Muslim, we were not brought to this life just to enjoy ourselves, because even this enjoyment, all enjoyments of this life compared to the hereafter are very, very limited. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, for example, in Surah At-Tawbah, وَمَا مَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا فِي الْآخِرَةِ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ. The pleasure you have here compared to the hereafter is something very limited. And he said in Surah Al-Imran, وَمَا الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا فِي الْآخِرَةِ إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. So the pleasures you have here are limited. And remember that very well. And remember that whatever pleasures you have here, either you should leave them or they will leave you. And we have lots of examples of people who enjoyed themselves very well. They had loads of palaces, mansions, and at the end, so what? They left it. They didn't take anything with them. When you die, you will get nothing. It's just a very little cloth that you will be wrapped with, and then you will leave all the worldly life. You will leave the money that you collected, whether from halal or haram. You will leave everything you have. Did your best to accumulate money, to do so and so, but at the end you left, and then you are going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As he said in Surah Maryam, وَكُلُّهُمْ آتِيهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَرْدًا. You will come single, just by yourself. You have nothing to do. You have only your deeds, whether they are good or whether they are bad. And then another thing, that people will be gathered naked, as we have the hadith, the sound hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. And Sayyidah Aisha asked him, they will be naked? He said yes, because the issue or the matter on the Day of Judgment is greater than people. Somebody might ask, for example, and will people look at each other, for example? No, it's greater than that, because everybody is busy with, is he going to receive his book by his right hand and will be among the happy people, or will receive his book by his left hand and will be among the unhappy people? Will he go to paradise or to hellfire, or whatever the situation? People will be scared. And even as we are told by the hadith, people would wish that they might to go to hellfire on that day, just to avoid the difficulties and the hardships of the Day of Judgment, because it's a very long and a very severe and a very difficult day. This is for those who are not good believers. But for the good believers, as the hadith says, the day will pass very quickly before them, exactly as they are praying, for example, Al-Asr prayer or Dhuhr prayer, and so on. So another hadith also was the Prophet ﷺ, he said, people of pleasures or enjoyments in this life will be deprived in the hereafter. أهل الشبع في الدنيا هم أهل الجوع في الآخرة, or the meaning of the hadith. And another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is saying that one of the people who had all enjoyments and had all the pleasures in this life, but he didn't do anything for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He didn't prepare himself for the hereafter. And on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put him in hellfire just for a very short time. And he knows his position very well, and he will ask him, my slave, my servant, عبدي هل مر بك نعيم قط؟ فيقول يا ربي ما مر بي نعيم قط. Have you ever seen any kind of enjoyment in the dunya? He would say, oh Allah, I have never enjoyed anything, and I have never faced, or I have never had any kind of pleasure. Although he enjoyed himself very well and he had all kinds of pleasures, but subhanallah, just very short moment in hellfire made him forget everything. And in another, on the other side, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring a person who had suffered a lot in his life and who had never enjoyed anything in his life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put him in paradise for a very short while, and he will ask him, عبدي هل مر بك بؤس أو شقاء قط؟ فيقول العبد يا ربي ما مر بي بؤس ولا شقاء قط. Allah will ask him, my servant, my worshipper, have you ever faced any kind of misfortune, any kind of difficulty? He would say, because he felt the enjoyment of paradise and the enjoyment of the hereafter, he would say, oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I have never face any kind of difficulty, and I have never suffered anything in the dunya, because the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater than your imagination, and it's the pleasure that made people spend their day and night worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, prepare themselves very well for that day, doing loads of prayers and doing loads of worships to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while He is pleased with them, and He is pleased with their deeds, and He is going to admit them to paradise that nobody knows, of course, about its pleasures except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَجَزَاهُمْ بِمَا صَبَرُوا جَنَّةً وَحَرِيرًا, because for their patience, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He states in the verse, وَجَزَاهُمْ بِمَا صَبَرُوا جَنَّةً وَحَرِيرًا. Jannah is a place for which believers are longing for, and it's a place for which many people, they lost their lives and they sacrificed everything. As we said before, Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he donated all his money and everything he had just for the sake of this paradise. In one of the battles, one of the companions, he said to the Prophet ﷺ, if I want to paradise, what should I do? The Prophet said to him, okay, go for fighting, and then you will die as a martyr, and then you will enter paradise. And then the man made his way for fighting, and then he participated in the battle, and he died as a martyr, and then he entered paradise. So this is the reward for those people. وَجَزَاهُمْ بِمَا صَبَرُوا جَنَّةً وَحَرِيرًا. Harira, or the silk itself, as we know, it is prohibited for men here, but in the hereafter it will be permitted. In paradise, subhanAllah, everything which was, that's why when you deprive yourself of such pleasures here, you will have them in the hereafter much, much, much better than here. They were deprived from wearing silk in this life, then in the hereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made silk permitted for them. وَإِذَا بِمَا صَبَرُوا جَنَّةً وَحَرِيرًا. Garments which are made of silk. Again, they were deprived from wearing, for example, drinking wine, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made wine permitted for them. They were deprived from wearing anything made out of gold. In the hereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed them to wear gold. So what's prohibited here in the hereafter will be permitted. Okay? And so on. So it is a complete change and a complete different life that nobody knows about it except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jannatan wa harira. So silk will be permitted for them, and they will wear garments made of silk. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying also in Surah Al-Hajj, وَلِبَاسُهُمْ فِيهَا حَرِيرٌ, and in the same in another surah, which is Surah Fatir. So laws of pleasures and laws of blessings are being prepared for the pious, for the righteous, for those who feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and prepared themselves very well for that day. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gather us among the abrar, and gather us among those who are righteous and who are waiting for the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the end, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all our sins, and until we meet again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وترى الجبال تحسبها جامدة وهي تمر مر السحاب صنع الله الذي أتقن كل شيء إنه خبير بما تفعلون.
مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت 7 سنابل
وكل في فلك يسبحون.
ويخرج